Hello. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you. I think you actually have your mic on mute. Looks like the icon's
How about now?
up. I can hear you just fine now.
Oh, I hope that the whole world hasn't missed my last 36 minutes of Bob Ross excellence as I talk to myself while painting.
They may have. I can't vouch for that. Have you looked in the chat?
Oh, no. This has been a stream that I usually do Tuesday night. So this is sort of just like hey, I'll open the door and see if anybody wants to hang out. So I wasn't expecting, a big chat, but I do actually like sometimes doing like an art stream where I just talk about what I'm doing. It is kind of fun. You get into that rhythm like you are Bob Ross. You're like, yeah, and I'll just move a shadow here. And yeah, this shirt, there's an interesting wrinkle here. I'm gonna go explore this wrinkle. No.
There's only happy accidents.
There's only happy accidents. And I'm like telling stories about this guy, and I'm like, you see this shirt, this logo, that's like a soccer team in his planet. Yeah. It's like his planet's version of Adidas.
Oh my god. So like I am not that kind of art. Like I dabble in the whole art thing. Like I don't. I'm obviously not the guy that draws my books. I'm not at that level.
Oh yeah, no. The art. Who is your artist? Because it is stunning. It is totally stunning. The art in your book.
So for the Embrace, we have Dean James. He's my co-creator, and he does the line work. And then we have Paul Billick on colors. And Paul's worked with Rob Willis on Shinobi Sasquatch, and it was a hell of a snag to get him. He's tremendous, and he and Dean's art together makes a one hell of a good package on the Embrace.
Oh, I agree completely. It sells it. You just see it and it just sings. The combination of the lines and colors just sing. It's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. It is definitely a book that the line art and the color work complement each other very well. Dean does a very good job of setting the tone of a page, and then the Paul brings that tone to life with his color work. It's really good.
Yeah, I agree completely. So yeah, talk about how the story came to you, and because there's a couple like opening ideas about a story, and the death of a child. That's a hard one, right? That's a hard so I mean, you set yourself a hurdle there, but I think when people hear about it, it actually becomes really inspiring. So talk about how the idea for the story came to you.
So the Embrace is born from I think that there's always when you're drawing from something this emotional and from this kind of dark place, there's always two parts. There's always at least two parts to that inspiration. And in a lot of interviews I talk about, because it's something that I think is pretty relevant to how I came up with the Embraces. James O'Barr, when he is talking about the Crow, the Crow is this story that is a result of the anger that he felt when his fiance got killed in a drunk driving accident.
Right.
And so that fuels the emotion of the piece. But the actual creation of Eric Draven and Shelley Webster was he saw an article in a newspaper about a young couple getting murdered in Chicago over a plastic engagement ring. And so with the Embrace, it's kind of similar. Like I had stuff that that I've been dealing with. I'm going through a divorce, and I have a 3-year-old son.
Oh my gosh.
And so no matter how much and no matter how much each party is trying to be civil about things, there's a lot of pain and a lot of hurt that comes with that situation.
Of course.
Because at the end of the day, you're going from, you have a family to you're no longer a part of that family, and you're not seeing your kid every day, and that's on both sides. And so the emotion behind that and the hurt behind is what drove the emotion that is in the embrace. But the real world story that brought David and Clarence to life was, I want to say it was close to a year after James was born. We had just moved into our second house. Well, it wasn't a house. We moved into our first apartment that we were renting together. Like before James was born, we had rented some space from people, but it didn't have like it wasn't like an apartment or anything like that. We were renting out the basement level of a house while we were while these people were out of the country. While we were trying to get ourselves together at a point where we could be financially stable and have our own place. And so we had just moved into our new place, our new apartment, and Elizabeth brings to my ex. She brings to my attention that there was a body of a kid found in this park, and the significance of the park was that this park was a place that my ex and I used to go to all the time. It was right down the street from the apartment she and I had lived together in after I came back from deployment. And so it was just one of those things where you think about that and you see that and you're like, oh my God, that could have been my kid. And so we looked into it, and it turned out that this kid was likely a victim of a gang initiation thing that was being done. And so that's where the story of David and Clarence really came from, is this emotional time that I'm going through, in this real world story that's always kind of haunted me and stuck with me. And rather than allow it to take me over and everything, I decided to turn it into something constructive and into something positive. And that's honestly where I feel the embrace really sets itself apart from things like while there is a lot of inspiration from The Crow and The Haunt and everything like that, at the end of the day, those stories are about revenge. Those stories aren't I wouldn't say they aren't constructive, but they aren't heroic. Eric Draven isn't somebody that you should aspire to be.
Right.
But in the embrace, David represents the best parts of Clarence. And we see Clarence at the beginning of the lowest point. And the whole point of David coming back is him trying to save his dad. And by coming back and being this hero and helping his dad bring these killers to justice, not revenge, justice. That hopefully his dad will be able to move on and live a bit of a more fulfilled life. Instead of just being this empty shell that, was willing to take his own life. Because that's what sets everything in motion, is that Clarence has effectively had quite possibly the worst year that you could possibly imagine. And he's ready to give up. He's going to this last place that he was with his son with every intent of not doing anything else. He had every intent to take his own life, and is even about to when he's interrupted by the ghost of his kid. And that's where David comes in, and that's that's David's role in the story. He's the hero.
It's funny because like revenge fantasy is sort of like, it's a staple of exploitation 70s movies, where like, he was in the wrong side of a gang deal, but then his ghost comes back and kills everyone. That The Crow falls into that almost exploitation genre. But you're right; those aren't
Yeah,
hero stories. Those are revenge fantasies, but they're not hero stories.
exactly. And O'Barr even says that he did. And I highly recommend if anybody is looking at reading it. But he did a 10th anniversary re-release of The Crow that had never before seen panels and pages that he had done. That it was too raw for him to put in there when he was initially doing it. And so, enough time had passed, he had enough catharsis over it, so he was comfortable with the world seeing it. And they're beautiful, but he also wrote a foreword in that, and he talked about how, The Crow was this kind of way for him to lash his anger out at the person that took his fiance away from him, his wife.
Yep.
And that's not the point of the embrace. I'd be lying to say that there aren't times where I feel angry or hurt about things, but at the end of the day, even though I don't get to see my son every day, I still have my son.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want it to be that when my kid grows up and they look back at this comic, they see this ugly side of it. I want it to be that when he grows up and he looks back at this comic, that he sees the loving relationship between this father and son, and to see how bright of a light that Dave is in Clarence's life, and realize just how important he is to me.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I'm also a dad, and if you ever want to straighten up and fly right, you just say to yourself, how do I look in my child's eyes? And that question will zap you right awake. You're absolutely right. You want to leave something that in the future, when it's looked at, it will show the best of who you are,
Yeah, and that's really what I wanted to do here with The Embrace. I wanted this story to really speak out, and the core essence of it is that our children are the best parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And Clarence has been lost for a year because he hasn't had that light in his life, and so his character journey is along with David is going to be becoming reacquainted with that light and kind of getting a better picture of where he stands now. And by the end of the book, it is my intent that dynamic does eventually reverse, because Clarence is going to make the heroic decisions to protect his son by the end of the book. And that's going to be the beauty of it, is that it started off on a story about a son saved the father, and by the end of the book, the father is going to come full circle and do his job to protect his son.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because this is like, now that I'm kind of seeing it, you're painting the picture for me. There is definitely a genre at work here, which is the genre where like there's movies like the musical Carousel, the play Our Town, It's a Wonderful Life. There's someone who gets a chance to come back from the dead and make things right. So that's definitely like a genre that has been done in many styles, but I don't think of too many superhero comics with that entry point. So again, I think you're onto something really cool, and it's obviously super personal to you, and that always comes through. Like people need to feel that you feel it. That's exactly. A huge thing.
No, 100%. If you are not at least like it, you don't have to be like you don't have to be so like whatever when you are writing something. Sorry, I'm all over the place.
No, this is it, man. This is a campfire. You just ramble on. We're just enjoying ourselves.
When you write something and you are not passionate about it, it comes through in your writing.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so at the very least, you need to be passionate about what you're writing. It doesn't necessarily have to be something emotionally harrowing like The Embrace is for me, but it needs to be something that you are passionate about and that you do get emotional to an extent when you talk about it, because otherwise, how are you going to get people excited about looking at your book? You know?
Mm-hmm. The indie scene that, you know, exists right now is all about that, because we're talking about people that suddenly realize that, you know, you have a chance to make your dream a reality. You know, if you're willing to put your heart out there and you know, put your idea in front of the public, and you're willing to fail, but if you take that risk, you can also make your dream a reality. And meanwhile, at the big two, we have freelancers who are barely being paid sustenance wages, you know. So, I mean, the advantage is with the creators who are putting everything on the line to do this, you know, and you can see that. I mean, there was a page from one of the big two comic books. Again, I don't fault the artists. They're freelancers. They got a gig working for the big two. I think that the art they did is exactly what the publisher wanted from them. But some of it is so flat and lacking in like bite and conviction and all the things that people here in the indie world like. That's all we have is our bite and our conviction. You know, we're trying to claw ourselves up from nothing. So I agree with you. You know, that passion is our secret weapon, you know?
Well, and it blows my mind, because I think that every single person that I have met in the indie scene, if they were given the chance to be where those freelancers were,
mm-hmm.
and drawing these characters that were literally the reason we got into comics.
Yeah.
We'd be putting out 10 times better work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
it's weird. It's weird. I think sometimes their hiring criteria is we're going to hire someone who is not going to talk back to us. You know what I mean?
100%. No, there is no, and this is a big thing. There's a lot of prima donna BS that is happening in the mainstream, from what I can see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that probably the best example of this that you can really go for right now is Tom King. Okay,
mm-hmm.
So you have Tom King, and everyone knows who Tom King is in this industry because you know he's infamous. His Batman run was atrocious, and that's putting it mildly. Tom King came on to Batman. He had an editor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tom King didn't like getting checked by that editor.
I see.
He didn't like the editor telling him, "Hey, this is not good." And this is why, for the majority of his, like up until the wedding, Tom King's run was passable. Like it wasn't anything to shake a stick at, but it wasn't bad. It was just there. And people bought it because it was Tom King, and everyone was like, "Oh man, Vision was great."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like you get to the point where Tom King boots his editor, and then all of a sudden it's nosedive into everything that he's become infamous for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, it reminds me of The Last Jedi as well, when, like, you know, you had George Lucas in Star Wars, but you had Marsha Lucas who edited it, like, made the trench run with her editing. You know, you have all that raw footage, but to edit it with the rhythm that that was Marsha Lucas, right? And you have all these people. But with The Last Jedi, we had one guy write, direct, edit, and no proofreading. Well, yikes. And you see, that was a recipe for disaster. You know?
So I think that this is actually where it gets really interesting, is George Lucas did not have, okay, so when you look at the original trilogy, the only one of those films that George Lucas did anywhere close to the majority of everything on was the first one, was Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Empire Strikes Back, he was like, he always had like the creative say, but it was written the script was entirely written by somebody else. I think Steven Spielberg co-directed it with him, if I recall correctly. He was not Lucas's strength in the original trilogy was allowing people to do their job. It's very funny because then you go to the prequel trilogy and it didn't do well because George Lucas tried to take ended up taking up all the control and wrote and did everything himself.
Yeah, exactly.
As a result, we got garbage. But then you look at the sequel trilogy, and it has almost the exact opposite problem. Like, yes, you have the whole Rian Johnson thing, but what I think a lot of people forget is that going into The Last Jedi, there was an established script that JJ and Ryan had worked out before Ryan was officially signed on that he was supposed to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rian Johnson threw that script out and did his own fucking thing.
I do my own thing.
And it's crazy because I know that it is par of the course in this side of the industry to just hate Rian Johnson for Last Jedi, and I feel like that is more than warranted. But it's really a shame because the guy is a really talented filmmaker. I'm sorry, Knives Out is one of my favorite freaking movies that has come out in the past few years. It is hilarious.
I don't doubt it. It's just that maybe it wasn't the right move for Star Wars, but that doesn't mean he couldn't make other genre pictures that could be fine. Exactly. Get him in his genre, he's gonna be fine.
I think the problem is, and this is one of those things where you have, and you're seeing it even in the MCU and DC and everything like that, is you have these people that come in and want to direct films their way with no regard or respect of the property that came before. Rian Johnson was excited to work on Star Wars because it's Star Wars, but he didn't care about respecting that legacy. He cared about putting his own stamp on Star Wars. And that's where the issue comes in. He didn't care about, pissing off fans and this, that, the other. He didn't care about the fact that there was, 30 years of expanded universe stuff that he could have been pulling from and bringing people that wrote those, that wrote those pieces in on board. He didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to do Star Wars his way. Mm-hmm. And his way was a giant middle finger. And so I think that's the big core of the problem, is when you set out to make something that is disingenuous to its legacy, it's going to piss off the people that fucking love it.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. But we shouldn't spend all day on this topic, though I think you and I see it similarly. But in both cases, though, I would just posit the theory that there are people in the higher levels who wanted it that way, and we're egging him on and saying, "Yeah, do this 100%. Thing." And they even with some of the big two comics, it's the same way. Like, yeah. Do this thing. That'll make them mad. Yeah, no, do this. No, that'll make them mad. I mean, what are we doing? I always think about the movie Solo. My son was like 5 when the movie Solo came out, and my son, his favorite character when that movie came out was Han Solo. Guess what? I didn't take him to see it. Now me, when I was 5, I saw The Empire Strikes Back in the theater. That's how old I am, right? So if they had been cultivating fans, they could have sold how many movie tickets? They would have brought all the dads and then all the kids and then multiple rewatches. So it's unthinkable how much money they left on the table. Just think about it. If they hadn't taken the tack they did, they would have had all the dads and they would have brought their daughters and their sons and they would have gone for multiple viewings. I mean, wow, so much money left on the table for what? It's amazing.
Because Darth Maul is cool. That's all that.
Yeah, because I would, if it was good, I would have gone. Yeah, I would have gone, 100 times, and it wasn't bad, mind you. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't great, and it wasn't
It's not.
up to the snuff
Well,
of
it's
a
also
major.
not Han Solo.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Well, and a buddy of mine pointed out to me as well, the Solo movie is the biggest redundancy to A New Hope ever. Because
Mhm.
they effectively put Han Solo through the exact same character arc that he went through in A
Yeah.
New Hope.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why? Like this
You're
could have
right.
been
You've done this
like
already, you know?
yeah,
Yeah, you
like
saw
this.
it.
I feel that the Han Solo film should have been like it should have been like more morally ambiguous.
Right, you should have ended him with him being a scoundrel. Yeah, of course. Of course.
Smuggler that deals in black market trading. So that's going to be up and but wasted opportunities are wasted opportunities.
Yeah. Well,
And
but your audio is clipping right now. You're getting kind of a robot. You're getting kind of a digital glitch on your sound right now. Oh, it's fine. We're talking about Solo, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's a perfect effect. You remember when the robot died in Lando's arms? How ridiculous that was. Yeah. But the funny thing was, and again, I didn't really expect me to talk about Star Wars. I happen to love Star Wars, but you know, the funny thing was that, you know, when the Lego movie came out, I thought to myself, that's the dumbest idea for a movie. That's going to be the dumbest thing ever. And I watched it. And it was actually great, you know. And then you have they kick off Lord and Miller from doing Solo, and then Lord and Miller go win an Oscar for Into the Spider-Verse. So how foolish are you to take off these directors who are hitting home run after home run? So, oh gosh, it was a mess. It was a mess. You know, you get rid of Lord and Miller right after they've done the Lego movie and right before they do Spider-Verse. Like, that was an unwise move. You know, those guys were hot right there. You know, they were doing their thing. You know, just let them do their thing. So anyway, yeah. But anyway, I think all of this is to say that the people right now who are putting it all on the line to make a dream come true for themselves, for their family, you know, all we have is that passion and that commitment. So that's the secret fire of all of us here who are trying to make a dream come true, you know. So if the corporate product can't keep up, that's okay. That's okay. You know, I don't really see the big two as competition, you know. Because we're on a different level. We're just trying to make something out of nothing. That's a whole different game than trying to, you know, do what they're doing. Yeah. I like the idea of building a new world. Like, you know, you have to embrace. And what are the rules of this game? You know, what are the rules of, you know, what rules govern this ability to go back and guide your parents? And it's like you get to be the person who decides the rules of that universe. You know, that's so cool. And that's what I'm into too. You know.
You know, this is, I know that it's a very topic, but like, you know, you have all these more representation and what have you in books, but then their answer to that is use old IPs and just race swap or do this or do that. And the tragedy is comics became the medium that they were because of the ingenuity of the people that were creating them.
Mm-hmm.
And the constant, oh, we have a new character this week. Oh, we have a new team this week.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how the Silver Age is built. That's, you know,
Yep.
obviously, you know, Golden Age was the start of everything, but like comic books didn't take off the way that we know them today and everything until the Silver Age. That's where everything started to come in. And you have that now. You could do that.
Yep.
Create new characters. You could create new. You could create new superheroes, but instead, you have so little faith in doing that and creating new characters that you're just going to take an old IP and throw a new skin on it. That's just going to piss me off. And I think, and the moment that you get angry about it, and the moment that you voice any opinion about it, you become it. And there's no middle ground to it. It's not, well, why do you think this way? It's up. You just hate the market. There's no anyone here saying it all.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you.
Just not listening.
It's a wild thing, the whole reboot world. And then it just gets, like you say, they just keep stretching the soup more and more when, bring us a whole new team, bring us a whole new vision of something that reflects, where things are today, but don't keep redressing old things because, it's like, I remember, again, I'm probably older than you, but I remember in 2004, 2003, MTV would do these all weekend. They would be like 100 funniest videos of the 1980s, and they were like clip shows, but they would last an entire weekend. And I was like, my brain was like, well, I grew up with all the stuff that they're doing nostalgia for on these shows. So when I hear like the safety dance, I think about like where I was in 1982, what I was feeling in 1982. But it's like, what if you're the kid growing up and this is your childhood? So your child is watching nostalgia programming about someone else's childhood, but that is your childhood.
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to have memories about watching the clip shows? And I'm like, that's what we're doing. They're kind of like bringing things back. So many repetitions, like you can't keep bringing these things back. You got to do a new thing, So I agree with you that this endless reboot and relaunch, it can't go on forever, It's not really, it's not respectful to the new viewer who wants something new, and it's not respectful sometimes to the creative teams who really did something new on the first time, like Captain Marvel, the Monica Rambeau. I remember her, and that was brilliant. I remember when Mark Silvestri did the X-Men versus Avengers. I bought that right off the stand. It was awesome, So it's just funny.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. They're bringing these people back and then putting them under writers that just don't exist.
Yeah.
And see these people not as characters, but as extensions of their political soapbox on social media.
Yeah. Well, the good news about is what we're doing is that, I feel like, in the days of the indie scene is just, you have a photocopier, right? And you draw, and you have a friend that draws. Even the early pages of Cyberfrog, they're all done on Xeroxes. It's like, that's what it was. If you could make something, you could Xerox it and give it to your friends. But now we have Twitter, we have high quality small batch printing, we have YouTube, we have, it's just amazing the resources that we have available to do these things and to not rely on, the larger corporate structure to give us our chance at bat, That's like, you can make your own fate a little bit, and that's really inspiring. So I guess all this is to say, if anyone's watching this stream, because I don't usually like to take too much time like criticizing other people, because the energy is in what we're doing and not what other people are doing wrong. But that being said, if anybody is watching this, the idea is that it's time to do this thing. It's time to build your thing, to make your thing a reality, like it's never been before. There's no time like right now. This is the best time I've seen. It's unbelievable what's possible right now.
I honestly, I genuinely, I genuinely believe that within the next 5 years, you are going to see this massive paradigm shift, because it's already happened. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic, for all of its good, for all of its bads, for us in the indie scene, it was actually a huge opportunity, and we took advantage of it. Mm-hmm. Because while the rest of the mainstream were pencils down, we were still putting out content.
That's right.
People still wanted comics, and so they went to the indie scene, and all of these, as you said, back in the day, indie was if you could print it on Xerox, you could get it done.
Yeah.
But so like there was that connotation that indie were these like neck bearded nerds down in their mom's basements printing off comics from their printers and handing them out at conventions begging people to read them.
Yeah. Or just
Like the
someday when I have
pandemic.
access to the tools of the big two, then I'll really be somebody. But it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
we have access to those tools right now. Like I can use the
Exactly.
same software the pros use. I can print on the same paper the pros use. Like, dude, it's on. You know, it's on.
And that's the whole thing, is that people got these books. People have been getting these crowdfunded books, and they're like, "Holy shit! Why am I buying? Like, why am I spending hundreds of dollars a month on DC and Marvel comics for books that have maybe 18 pages of story in them?"
I know that gets me. That
And
gets me.
like inconsistency between the art teams. Like one issue will be really well drawn, and then
Yeah.
the next issue will be utter shit.
True. It's true.
Like,
I know. When you keep
Why
a team
would-
on
why-
for a while, it's like that's how you make magic, is by leaving a team on for a while.
well, the other big thing is, if we go back to that whole prima donna thing, and you have a lot of writers that are just pissing off artists and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, like, they don't want to stay on their books for too long. I know.
Yeah, I see your point.
I don't want to stay on the criticizing thing, but I do think it's important to point out so that people recognize that, as you said, now is the perfect time.
Oh, it really is.
Because there is this fallout in the mainline industry that's a direct result of how they've been running things.
Mhm.
And so if you have a good idea, if you genuinely believe in it, get it down on paper,
Mhm.
get it out there, because
Yeah.
more than likely there's a market for it. And this is the best shot that we have.
Mhm.
Now I don't think crowdfunding is going to be like this be all end all that we have right now. I think that there's going to come a point where there's going to need some self-sufficiency. But that's what the crowdfunding is for, is making that first step.
Mhm.
I would say within the next 5 years, you're going to have people that have been running these campaigns and have been making mid 5 figures to low 6 figure campaigns pretty consistently. They're going to shift off crowdfunding the moment that they actually have a bit of a library and start setting up actual sites.
Yep.
And maybe splitting up their books that they crowdfunded into multiple mini floppies.
Oh yeah, I that's my ambition, is to kind of have. I picture my little world is about 4 or 5 titles, and that's it. And like we are updating those 4 or 5 titles, and while you're waiting for the next issue of Tales of Zero, El Sure Shot comes out. Oh, and then you get into that world. But then while you're waiting for that, the next one comes out. If you have 4 or 5 titles in rotation, people are really ready for the next piece of story,
Yeah, no,
because they've waited for it, and then, but you've also got fans who came on for one book, but then they're like, oh, I like that cowboy book. Oh, you have a space book? All right, I'll watch that too and see what I think. So, I've got in the wings from my own productions, like about 4 to 5 titles that are already in production, each one different art style, different art team. And, just, it's doable. It's doable to have your little pocket industry. I'm not going to be the big fish, but anybody who reads my books is going to be really entertained, and it's going to have a really unique and awesome art to look at,
That's honestly the best that we can do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, who knows? Like you never know. Maybe you come up with a title that really does put you down as one of the big fish.
Yeah.
You never know. But as far as right now and what right now is concerned, it's like you just make a damn good book, and you make it as entertaining and fun as you can. And that's all that we can do. That's what anyone should be striving.
Yeah,
and I see creators all the time starting to get their head in the clouds about movie deals and this, that, the other. Just focus on putting out your fucking book.
Yeah, totally. I know. I try to tell people that this is my movie. Like what I'm doing right now is I'm working on my movie. Like it doesn't need to be made a movie because these are the stills. These are the film that plays in the theater of your mind. A comic book is a movie that plays in the theater of your mind. So look, this is like a frame from my movie. See, like when you read my book, you saw it. So I don't need to make the movie. It's a movie now. It's a movie in your mind, you know. And I like because that's how it was for me growing up. You know, I could read the I had the Marvel Treasury Edition, Empire Strikes Back. Oh my gosh, how many times do you think I read that? Right, thousands of times,
Probably.
right? And it was like seeing the movie, right? And
Yeah.
so, and then when you get into X-Men or New Mutants or whatever, that was like seeing a movie that isn't in the movies, you know. And then you know these things, and you know what Wolverine is doing, you know what Nightcrawler is doing, and then you find a friend who also knows that, and anybody else who isn't into comics has no idea what you're talking about, you know. So to me, it's like turning comics into movies. Well, X-Men is a perfect example. You know, X-Men was huge in my life when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. When the X-Men movie finally came out, you know, I was much older, and I was like, well, you know, X-Men was big in my life. I think I'll go see that movie. And oh man, I hated it. I really didn't like it because for me, the X-Men were really colorful, you know, like like Colossus is red and yellow, and Nightcrawler is blue and red. And when I saw them on the big screen, like, all right, we're all going to wear black. I was like, well, wait, and we're going to film everything really in the shadows. And I said, wait. So I just feel like, you know, there's no better special effects in the world than a comic book because it's your mind creating the explosions. It's your mind creating the lasers. It's your mind creating everything. So and I've very rarely been a fan of comic book movies. You know,
It's this
to me, this
perfect
is the
little
movie. This is the movie.
perfect little bridge, where like it is a visual medium, but it still does rely heavily on written word and the audience's imagination. And
Mhm.
like, you know, there's a rule in horror filmmaking where you try not to show too much because what the audience can imagine is far worse than anything that you
Exactly.
can put on screen.
Precisely. So yeah,
Um,
comic book movies never did it for me for that exact reason. Because once you film it and put people in rubber suits, I'm just seeing like, yeah, but these are just people in rubber suits. You know, it's hard for me to go to that willing suspension of disbelief. But in a comic book, I'm like, yeah, of course, there's a guy with adamantium claws who wears a yellow and blue suit, right? Yeah, of course. You know, and it's like it's your mind makes it work in a way that actors in suits just, for me, I've always found comic book movies a little bit lacking. So yeah, this is my
I
movie.
think that in all
Better than a movie.
depends on it. It completely depends on the how the storytelling is handled in the film.
Mhm.
Because I think that the other big thing that you have with a lot, and it's one of the big things that I have. That's why, you know, I love the early MCU stuff all the way through uh the end game.
Mhm.
But why I think that, you know, for instance, James Mangold's Logan, while a very well made film and is a very good film, was a step back for the genre because
Mhm.
the big thing about it is that for a very long time the whole approach to comic book films was, oh, we have to ground it. We have to ground it in reality.
Mhm. Mhm.
Realistic and everything like that.
Mhm.
I don't think you guys understand.
Yeah, that's
Um,
not what we want. What we want to see. Yeah.
well, it's not even that. That's not the point of comics.
Right.
Comic
Right.
books
Right.
are modern mythology and fantasy. They're like these characters represent intangible concepts and ideals that we will never be able to realistically achieve, but give us something to strive towards, something to constellations to reach for, you
Mhm.
know? And that's the whole point. And so when I saw stuff like, you know, when the Avengers first came out, you know, and the Avengers it's aged meh.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
like
I
when it
like.
first came
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
and you had the Battle of New York happening on screen and it worked,
Yeah. Yeah.
like my jaw hit the floor. Um, because it completely owned the fantastical. It didn't try to like remind you, oh, we're grounded in reality. It's like, no, there's a guy in a fucking red, white, and blue costume fighting alongside a guy that's effectively a human robot
Right,
against aliens coming out of a wormhole in the sky.
Yeah.
We aren't going to be racking our brains over the scientific No, it is what it is. It's a comic book movie. Your suspension of disbelief isn't freaking isn't destroyed because of it. It's
Mhm.
and it is what it is.
Mhm.
And that's one of those things where, look over at like the Zack Snyder camp of things over at DC and how he was handling things with Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. It's just like you are trying to tether all this real world stuff into like literal mythology, like DC in a way far more than Marvel is effectively a modern pantheon.
Yep, that's right.
And so you're trying to bring in all these real world implications on them and try and deconstruct them, and it's like you've missed the point. And it's why I was surprised the Snyder cut of Justice League was as good as it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I trust the people who tell me it's good, that it's worth my time. So when I have my moment, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I think that the other big strength that it has is that he broke it up into 6 parts.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't necessarily have to watch all 4 hours of it straight. You can if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want, you can be like, okay, well, I'll just break this up and watch a segment of it like throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm winding down. And I think that was a smart move.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like Justice League felt like a more mature take on that fantasy, but like it was fantastical. It didn't try to explain too much. It didn't try to beat you over the head with real world implications. It just simply was Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at Man of Steel, you look at Batman vs Superman, it's all about, oh well, wow, post 9/11 world react to these.
I know. So tired of that.
Beings of a higher power, and oh, look at this destructive capability of Superman. No one fucking cared. There's a reason why Man of Steel gets shit for all the destruction that happens, and it's not the fact that there hasn't been that level of destruction in a Superman movie. It's the fact that in all the other Superman movies where there is that level of destruction in a fight, they take time to showcase Superman trying to save people as well.
That's right.
And
exactly.
Superman doesn't do that at all in Man of Steel. And then Batman versus Superman, he straight up murders a human being. This is something that always gets freaking glossed over. Is that at the beginning of Batman versus Superman, Superman flies an African warlord through the back of a wall at Mach 6.
Oh gosh.
That man's dead. It's funny because apparently he's like he made a statement about it and said, no, that guy's not dead, but he won't be he won't be a problem anymore. Like he was super ambiguous as to like what the status of that guy is. I'm like, so he's a human. Like that's what happened. So like Superman didn't kill him, but he's incapacitated to a point where he will never be a problem to anyone ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So either Superman Justice Lorded him and lobotomized him with heat vision, or flying him through the back of the wall literally shattered his spine, and he's a human life support. Good job handling Superman, Zach.
Yeah, thanks, one.
Very true to form. Yes.
Yeah, I know. All those little things, like, in a post 9/11 world, what are super? It's like, oh man, that stuff gets dated so fast, and we know we're in for a raft of it with like After COVID-19, nothing was quite the same. You know, we're in for a whole raft of those, buddy.
And like that's one of the big things. It's one of those things like okay, I understand the want to do that because it is an interesting take of because 9/11 really did change our perspective of things in no small way. I mean, how could it not?
Mm-hmm.
And so putting characters in that situation isn't necessarily a bad idea, but the big problem was, and I'm not sure if you've ever watched High Top Films.
Which one?
High Top Films.
I don't know. I don't think so.
He's a YouTuber, and he did a video analysis on Man of Steel versus Captain America: Winter Soldier, redefining.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea was like, both of these films effectively sought out to do the same thing. Showcase an iconic American superhero, put in a post 9/11 and put them in a post 9/11 world that is kind of in conflict with what they were intended to be, and effectively the whole crux of the argument boils down that Man of Steel seeks to change Superman, who doesn't need to be changed. But Winter Soldier places the emphasis of change on America. Steve Rogers is the same person he's always been. He's recognizable. He's the exact person in the books. He's the exact person who's been in the films.
Yeah.
But America
has changed. Yeah.
And it becomes a struggle of him coming to terms with that change and how he has to live with that change. And that's why Winter Soldier works. Doesn't. Is Superman made is that Zack Snyder made a Superman that was unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't Superman.
Yeah.
And like that was the whole crux of it. But then and that's the whole problem when all you want to do is deconstruct people. But going back to Indy is you don't see as much of that sort of stuff because everyone's trying to build everything up. We don't have anything to deconstruct.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we just want to build our stories, build our universes, and build the connections between the characters, and if, then, and what, and why, and how everything connects. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and
I think
that's.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I think that's probably one of the greatest strengths is because people are sick of freaking deconstruction.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I usually wrap up my show around 1 a.m, and it's about 1 a.m. So thanks for coming on. Usually what I do is I have a drawing topic, and I'm a little more ready for the guest. But today I was just like, hey, let's just see what happens and hang out. So I really appreciate you chilling with me in a super unstructured way.
Oh, dude, it's no problem whatsoever. Okay. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. And let's do another. How many days are you into the campaign?
So today is we literally have 2 hours left in the first 30 days.
Oh my gosh.
And so we just cleared. We're at $7,115 with 134 backers.
That's great.
On our first 30 days, we are extending. But if anybody is watching right now, that wants to get in, there are a lot of things that are going away here. Once I extend the campaign, which I'll probably be doing. What I'll do is I'll extend the campaign morning. I'm going to be getting rid of a whole bunch of stuff. So the Nine Realms catalog's going away because it was an early bird special. And then the Field Issue 0 remaster is going away, which was one of our add-ons, because that was the early bird special as well. And then this is your last chance to get a free pinup by Dan Plagle. He won the fan art contest, and so his fan art piece is a free 11x17 pinup with for anyone that backs in the first 30 days.
Nice. Yeah, no, that sounds great. And you had some original art too, right?
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of original art up there. None of it has any shipping costs. We're taking care of the shipping all on our own for you guys. You guys are paying, hundreds of dollars for original art pieces. What we can do is help you out on the shipping fee. And every single piece of original art that is purchased comes with a copy of.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. I can't wait to see what we do in the next 30 days. And who knows, maybe give people the weekend or something. Say, I'm going to extend these first 33 days to the end of the day on Sunday. So, try to blast it out.
I think that's fair. What I might do is I'll allow the Nine Realms catalog to go. So like the add-ons. You know what? I think that's a good idea. What I'll do is, because it's such an awkward day, it's a Thursday, and with the weekend right here, I'll extend it to Sunday.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I would do. Not that I'm some expert, but yeah, that's what I would do. Well, cool. Let's definitely have you on again when I'm in my normal rhythm, and maybe we can actually start. Because usually I will call like 3 or 4 guests up, and we'll get a lot going. But today I just was too chilled out to do that, and I appreciate you willing to come on. So why don't you come on again, and we'll actually go through the campaign in more detail, and I'll talk about Tales of Zero too, and we'll just see what we can do, shake the tree, and see what we can create, right?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to come back on.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, and wish you a ton of luck with this project. I'll be backing it for sure.
Absolutely, bud. Thank you so much
cool.
for your support, and thanks for having me.
No problem. Have a great night.
All right.